Hey, what's up, guys? This is Benny Ricciardi with rotocurve.com, and I'm here with our DraftKings NBA Notes for St. Paddy's Day. It's also a national holiday for another reason. It's the first day of the NCAA tournament. So as you can see, I'm wearing my green and trying to get this video done as early as possible so I can go join the rest of you sitting on my couch and watching college basketball for the rest of the day until I have to put in NBA lineups tonight. So without further ado, let's call up the slideshow and talk about some of the situations that we're keeping an eye on for today. Rather than give you some plays that we like, we're going to talk about some situations that pop up every once in a while. And within those situations, we'll get into which plays, these situations are pointing towards for us. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Chicago Bulls situation. Pau Gasol was already out, and now Taj Gibson just went out as well. So they have a very thin front court at this point in time, and we'll get into how we're going to handle that. Also wanted to talk about the minimum priced injury situation. As you guys know, we've had a lot of injuries lately that have opened up a lot of these guys at minimum price that you just absolutely had to have in your roster if you wanted to have any kind of chance of winning some of these tournaments. And there's one of those situations that popped up today that I think is something we need to talk about. So we'll get into it and talk about that. And then the third thing we're going to talk about is guys who are just coming back from injury. There's a situation with a guy who just came back from injury. His price is down below where it was before he got injured, and his minutes are on the uptick. So you got a guy with rising minutes at a cheap price still who has a chance to put up a big number. And that's another situation that we want to take advantage of in daily fantasy. So let's talk about these situations and which guys they point us towards today. Now, the Chicago Bulls big man situation. Chicago's got a matchup today with the Brooklyn Nets. Like we said in the opening, we got Pau Gasol out, and Taj Gibson is now doubtful as well after getting hurt in last game. So you're likely going to see the Chicago Bulls playing without Noah, who was already hurt, without Gasol, who's been hurt, and now without Taj Gibson, who just got hurt. So that's going to be a lot of minutes that are now open up in the front court, as well as shot attempts and rebounds and everything else that goes along with it. Now, the two guys that we're going to be targeting, Nikola Mirotic will probably be the main beneficiary. Without those guys in, he should be the guy who sees more shots. He's going to be playing more of the power forward role, so he's going to be in a position where they're going to be asking him to rebound a little more. It's not an easy matchup for him. He's going to have Thad Young over on the other side. But again, he's only $5,100 and is probably going to be playing 30-plus minutes in this one. Plus, he's going to be asked to do more on offense and to do more in the rebounding. So I do think there's a very good chance we get 30-plus fantasy points out of Mirotic here, which at $5,100 would be over 6x value. Now, the other guy who's going to get a big uptick here is going to be Bobby Portis. Now, you got to think that without Taj Gibson in there, they're going to roll a lot of Bobby Portis and Mirotic. They do have another big guy. I forget his name as well, another center, but he's, somebody who belongs towards the end of the bench. And then they also have the guy Barstow, who they're going to mix in there as well. They may even start Barstow at the center spot and Mirotic there, but I still think Portis is going to see his 25 to 30 minutes. Now, Portis is a very good rebounder. He has a very high rebound per minute rate when he's out there on the floor. So I do expect him to get the double digits in rebounds. With him also playing more minutes today, I think he can get you double digits in points. Now, a cheap double-double at a minimum is worth 23 fantasy points for you. So with Portis only being at 4K, but a little below 4K, 23.5 fantasy points is basically what you need for 6x value. I think he has a chance to get you a little more than that even and wind up with somebody in the 25 to 35 fantasy point range, which for less than $4,000 is definitely something you want to have some exposure to today. I do think he's going to be highly owned. This isn't a, last-minute situation that causes everybody to switch off. But again, at only $3,900, it's really tough for me to fade him. The next guy I want to talk about here is going to be Mason Plumlee going up for the Portland Trailblazers. Now, every once in a while, we'll get some of these minimum price guys who get in an injury situation where the guy in front of them or the guy they were splitting time with gets injured, and they go from playing 22, 25 minutes a game to playing 30, 35 minutes a game. At minimum price, that extra 10 minutes out there on the floor, think about it, that's 40% of the amount of time they were playing. So if there's a guy that can get you 20 fantasy points when he plays 20 to 25 minutes, if he plays, 30 to 35 minutes, he should be able to get you 28 to 30 fantasy points. Now, remember, his price hasn't moved. His price is still the same. Portland's Myers Leonard got hurt in the last game and is likely out for this game. So that means that there's a very good chance we're going to see probably around 30 minutes for Mason Plumlee. I do think they'll roll out maybe an Ed Davis or something else out there as well, or maybe even just go small for some stretches. I don't think Plumlee's going to play a full 35 to 40 minutes like some other guys do in this situation. But those two had been splitting time at center for the Blazers. So now that Leonard's out, we see those 30 minutes from Plumlee. I think Plumlee can go from being a guy that gets us, he's had games already, 22 to 30 fantasy points. I think with these added minutes, it puts him in with a floor of about 25 and a ceiling of up to 40 fantasy points. If you go check the game logs, it's not like he hasn't scored 35 to 40 fantasy points before. So I'm not asking him to do anything we haven't seen him do already this year. The thing that's been holding him back is the number of minutes he's been able to get. And now with Myers-Leonard's out, I no longer think that's an issue. Remember, Portland does play fast. They do miss a lot of shots. I think we can see a double-double come out of Myers-Leonard today. And I think double-double come out of Mason Plumlee today. I think he can get us 15 and 12 with an assist or two and a steal or a block and wind up with about 30 to 35 fantasy points. If I can get 30 to 35 fantasy points out of another guy who's below 4K, I'm going to have a pretty nice roster today if I have him and Portis there, and then I'll have the money left over to spend up on the studs that I really want. Now, the last guy I want to talk about is somebody who I'm going to have and already have on almost all of my DraftKings rosters this morning in both cash and GPPs, and that's Bradley Beal. He's got a great matchup against Philly, and Philly has been giving up a ton of points to the shooting guard position lately, so it's a really good spot for him. Now, the other reason why I really like Beal is I think he's going to be pretty low owned. He came off of injury 2 games ago, put up 27 fantasy points in 24, 26 minutes of action, and then came back and put up 37 fantasy points in his last game in 30 minutes of action. At his price of only $5,500, that's a return of 5.5x for the 27 when he first came off injury and only played a few minutes, and then a return of 6.8x when he played 30 minutes and put up 37 fantasy points. Now, the thing I like about it is now that he's getting healthier, his minutes are increasing, but so far his price hasn't increased. He was over 6K earlier in the year when we were using him as the 2 guard on that Washington Wizards team. Right now, his price is only $5,500, so he's down there with guys like KCP and J.R. Smith, guys who I think are a lot more volatile and who don't have the kind of upside that he has or a matchup as good as he does. Remember, he's going up against Philly now, who's been one of the teams that we've been picking on all season long. At only $5,500, I think in a worst-case scenario, he gets you a 5x minimum floor. And I think in a best-case scenario, he could wind up having a huge game for 40, 45 fantasy points tonight and get you 7 to 8x in this matchup. I think the biggest thing is whether or not this game stays close. And with the games being in Philly, I think there's a better chance that it stays close today than it turns into a blowout. And by close, I don't mean that, Philly's going to be in a 2-point game here. But if it doesn't get to the point where they're up, 15 or 20 points, then Washington's still going to have their starters out there for their full run. If we can get 30 minutes out of Bradley Beal today, I think we get, close to 40 fantasy points out of him. I'm calling a big day for Bradley Beal. So at $5,500, I think he's somebody that should be on a lot of your rosters today. So like I said, this is a big day here. It's St. Paddy's Day for those of you who like to drink. It's the opening of the NCAA tournament for those of you like me who love college basketball. For those of you who like doing both, it's pretty much the perfect possible day for it to happen. You can go to the bar, you can get a couple beers, and you can watch college basketball all day long. If I didn't have kids right now, I can tell you right now that's where I would be today. But I have a few other things I have to take care of, and once the kids go to sleep, I'll be down there to join you for the late games for the tournament tonight. So thank you guys for joining us here for our NBA video at rotocurve.com. And as always, stay classy, DFS.